Welcome, everybody, to this next episode here on Working Man Investor. My name's Tom, and I'm really happy to have Marc, the financial firefighter, with me today. We're going to talk a little bit here about some different investment strategies that we use and networking and whether or not we were afraid when we first started. I know I was terrified. I'm curious to see if Marc was just as scared as me. So, Marc, welcome. Thank you for doing this with me. I really appreciate you being here. Why don't you first just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are, your family, what you invest in, and different strategies that you've implemented over your years, and how long have you been investing?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tom. I've been excited to do this. I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. I love what you're trying to do here. Build this little community for yourself, kind of following the Michael Zuber plan. We're both kind of in the one rental at a time community. But
Yes.
yeah, so I'm a full-time firefighter in Honolulu, Hawaii. My YouTube or social media handle is Financial Firefighter, and I'm trying to do the same thing as you, kind of build a community of like-minded individuals and I do a lot of live streams on my channels and having a lot of repeat people on and kind of just shooting the shit, talking about real estate. Yeah, we get into politics once in a while, sports, but we talk about everything out there. Um, but yeah, so for me, I definitely had the golden handcuffs. With a firefighter pension, great medical benefits. I definitely was headed down that path of just kind of working my 25 years and being set, right? I figured, had a primary residence and I thought everything was set for me. 2020, the world changed for a lot of people. The world shut down. Um, and people went different directions from there, right? I think some people took it one way, other people took it a different way. And for me, it made me just really see how risky I was being with my financial situation, kind of, relying on one stream of income, relying on a pension. Um, I don't want to get into the vaccines or anything, but whether you did or you didn't want to take it, you know, it kind of made me realize where, if you had bills to pay, some people may have to do things that they didn't want to do or they didn't believe in, right? And for some people, for them to get their pension, they had to do certain things that maybe they didn't agree with. But it made me really realize that or take a hard look at my financial situation and made me realize how I kind of want to create my own pension. And that's kind of when I started looking into different type of investments. And I mean, I guess you could say I've always had real estate. I've had a condo since 2008 and, had a primary residence at 2015, but I never considered myself like a real estate investor. It was just one of those, you start off in a condo, you move up, and that was kind of my plan. 2020 came, and my friend was investing in real estate out of state in Pittsburgh, and he kind of started talking to me about it, and because I started looking at my situation as being fairly risky, that's why I started looking investing remotely. And then the question now becomes, and why remotely? And for me, it was just the numbers didn't make sense in Hawaii, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
yeah, there's a great appreciation, but you're gonna be negative cash flow for a long period of time. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Thanks for giving Michael Zuber a shout out. I appreciate him at One Rental at a Time. Obviously, that's where we met in our One Rental at a Time school community. I just kind of threw it out in their community to see if anybody wanted to do this, and fortunately, you reached out to me, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate him and for everything that he's done. So it's pretty much are you just pretty much just investing in real estate then, buy and hold, or do you do anything else, stocks, crypto, anything like that?
So for those that also follow, Dion Financial Talk, my I guess my claim to fame or what he mentions about me quite a bit is that I went all in. So after I kind of took the plunge investing out of state, I thought this real estate investing was very easy, and I emptied out my retirement accounts. I took out HELOCs and I went all in. So I got 14 properties probably within a year. And so Dion talks about it quite a bit, how sometimes when you go too fast, you actually slow yourself down. And that's kind of what I like to always preach to people is, it's it may seem easy in the beginning, but there's a lot. It's becoming a landlord, and it's also, no matter how great a property may seem on paper, there's always kind of that stabilization period. So, getting so many properties at one time and then trying to, I guess, in a sense, deal with tenant turnover or deal with minor maintenance things or vacancies, and dealing with, 10 to 14 at one time in a sense. It definitely puts your reserves um, yeah, at a risk. So for me, it's always I probably didn't have enough reserves as I should have had, or whatever I thought was enough amount, kind of dwindled away very quickly. So for me, it's really give yourself time to get your feet wet. So like if I was to do it again, I'd be way more strategic about it. But I'm also glad that I did do it, just for the fact of I'm kind of at the end of that 5 years of suck now. So
Hmm. Right, right. Yeah, that's interesting. I actually did it a little bit different than you. My story is just basically 10 years ago, roughly, we had just built this house that I'm sitting in, and my wife walks in the door, and there was an issue at a job where basically she was facing it, losing her job, and we just bought this house. So I was lucky enough to have a fairly large emergency fund saved up, but that's really all I had. I'd gotten out of the stock market after the great financial crisis of '08. Never was a huge fan of stocks. I just don't trust them. I can't figure out. I had a guy who tried to teach me stocks, and he'd always do this and be like, "You got to wrap your hands around it before you can invest in it." And I never could with stocks. So I'm sitting in early 40s with this big chunk of cash, and my wife walks in the door and tells me she's about to lose her job or could lose her job. I'm like, all right, well, we got to figure this out. So basically, she started a side hustle. I got my video on that, and she got called back to work. Didn't lose her job, which was good. So now she's back to work. She's got the side hustle kicking income, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. In the meantime, I'm reading everything on real estate investing. As I'm really reading it, I'm like, hey, I can wrap my arms around this. I can understand this. So, long story short, I read everything that I could because my attitude was I want to be prepared for an opportunity, even if I don't have one. I'm sorry, I'd rather have it be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and be unprepared. So, I started to go to multiple investment groups. And that's where I learned about private money lending. And the biggest wholesaler and investor here in Northwest Indiana was looking for private money. So I went and I talked to him. I had some money to loan to him, and we sat there and we talked for like 2 hours just about investing. And he's like, "Well, what are you doing? I want to learn to wholesale." Blah blah. He goes, "Well, I will mentor you." About floored me. He's like, "Because you have knowledge and you have capital." He goes, "You can buy stamps and things. I'm going to teach you driving for dollars. That's the cheapest thing to do." Man, I came home. I told my wife, I said, I'm all in. I said, we're all in. I said, this might be the only opportunity I ever get in my life. And I do not want to look back at this 40 years from now and say I should have taken it. So the next morning, we started driving for dollars. You drive around, you write the addresses down of beat up properties, you look it up in the Treasury site. My now mentor gave me a letter, a We Buy Houses letter. I bought stamps off of eBay, and I just started sending them. And I ended up getting quite a few deals out of that. And I bought ended up, this is what I want to ask you too, is how scared you are, because I was absolutely terrified when I first started. So I had more money, and my mentor, he was flipping. So he just got done flipping this really nice fourplex in probably about a C plus type area. So we got done with it, and I was looking to buy it from him, and I ran the numbers through the Bigger Pockets calculator. And I remember looking at this, and the numbers look good, but I remember telling somebody, the numbers just don't look right to me. I don't know why. And as soon as I said that, I thought, how stupid. If I don't know why the numbers don't look good, right, then the numbers look good. I'm just scared. And I promised myself fear was not going to stop me. So I told my mentor that, and he goes, then quit being a punk. Only he didn't call me a punk, but what he called me did start with the letter P, but I want to keep this, PG-13, so I'll let you figure out what he called me. Long story short, I bought that property, best investment I've ever made in my life. So I'm currently sitting at 5 properties, but really what pushed me over the edge is similar to you. Oop, I lost you. Oh, you're back. Did I lose you?
No, no, no. I just,
Okay.
like I said, if I have to blow my nose.
Okay. Oh, I got you. Um, so basically, what happened is when my wife came home and said she might lose her job, I began to just kind of look at money different. I always valued it, and I say this on my channel. Money to me, you want to weaponize it. You want to weaponize your career. It's like, think of a wall. The more assets you have, cash flowing assets that put money in your pocket every month, whether it's dividend paying stocks, rental properties. I do a lot of private money lending to other investors and earn an interest. All of that, the more of those you have, the taller and thicker your wall is. Now think about everything in life that scares you from a financial standpoint: inflation, illness, death of a spouse or a loved one, parents getting older and having to help them financially. The thicker and taller your wall is, it keeps all that stuff on the outside of the wall. So if my parents need assisted living and they can't help it, can't afford it, I got them. I lose my job, we're fine. My wife is now retired off of the decisions I made. So which is another story, but I've taken up enough time. I want to get back to asking you some questions. But how did you deal with fear, and how scared were you when you first made the plunge to start buying and investing in rental properties?
Yeah, so that's kind of where I struggle a little bit because I think for me being a first responder, it's easier for me to take the plunge and leap into things, and kind of just figure things out. So just like you though, I mean, of course, I listening to podcasts, started reading a lot more. Like I joke that I probably read more in the past few years than I did ever since I graduated high school, and that was back in 1994. So, I mean,
Me
like you said, you find something you enjoy and you start looking into it, and but for me, and I think for a lot of people, they struggle with analysis paralysis, and they need to know all the answers ahead of time before they make a decision. But I
too.
think for me, being a first responder, a lot of times we train or we do training drills and whatnot, and you never the scene or the call is never going to be the same as training, but you still have to figure out some sort of solution. So it's kind of you take what you know, you kind of analyze what you see, but at the end of the day, you still gotta figure things out. And I think for me, that's why it was easy for me to jump into real estate. But that's also why I feel like I struggle sometimes when I do talk to individuals that are looking for assistance or looking for some sort of guidance. Like I can see where I'm wondering, why are you having a difficult time pulling the trigger on this when like I would have did it, you know, 3 weeks ago or something.
Right.
And so that's something I'm trying to work on and realize that not everyone is like me. And I have to realize that the majority of people need to have more evidence or more answers provided to them. And it definitely helps me be a better communicator and even try to explain things better because I realize that not everyone is like me. So that from a fear standpoint, that's just I think it's me being a first responder, and it made it a lot easier for me to just take that plunge. And then on the flip side of that, being a first responder, we have such a very secure job that it's a little bit easier for me to take more risk because if things don't go as planned, overtime's available. So I can always have ways to increase more income to offset, maybe some maintenance expenses or some short-term pain and whatnot. So from that standpoint, I look at, yeah, you want to be um, smart in your decisions, but I'm also probably a little bit riskier in the sense where I know I have a very secure W-2 and opportunities to
Right.
increase that income. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, not funny, but I understand what you're saying about you when you talk to people about mentoring them, how it's because of your job and you faced danger, you ran into burning buildings, that's easier for you to overcome. I think the thing that with me, because when I would go to investor meetups, which I really haven't gone to too many now, the one that my mentor ran, he shut it down permanently after COVID. But I remember I would go there and I would help him. and people would watch me set up, and they knew that he was mentoring me. So they'd come to me and ask me questions. And one thing that always drove me insane, and it would be the deciding factor right then and there within the first 2 minutes. If I met them, if I was going to be willing to help them, they'd come up and they'd ask me questions. I'd answer the questions. And one guy was asking me, he goes, I want to learn how to wholesale. What can you tell me about wholesale? So I told him a little bit. I said, I read this book called If You Can't Wholesale After This, I Got Nothing For You. Now, that sounds like a ridiculous title. I said, but that book helped. And when I would do that, I'd always watch and see what they do. Because I know if I was talking to somebody that was where I wanted to be and they were giving me information and they told me a book that I read, especially in today's day and age, I'd get right on my phone and bare minimum, I'd be like, is this it? And I'd screenshot it. Or I'd probably just buy it right there on Amazon Prime. I had that conversation with like 10 people, and not one person ever did that. And then I'd come back the next month to the next meetup, and none of them would come to like, hey, I got that book, man. I read the first 6 chapters. I got X, Y, and Z question. Can you help me? None of them ever did that. I would do that. So right there, if you're not willing to do that, and for anybody that watches this that's looking for a mentor, if you're not willing to do that, you're going to have it very difficult to find a mentor. Another one, a guy was talking to me about wholesaling. And he said, hey, man, how'd you get the contract for that? I said, well, you can get it one of 2 ways. You can do what I did. You can find somebody to mentor you. I said, I'm not comfortable yet at mentoring you in wholesaling, but there's people's here and you can use their contract. The other way is and I point to the guy, there is the lawyer for this group, and he will write you up wholesaling contracts for $300. So they didn't like either one of those questions. What they always wanted me was just to whip it out and be like, here you go. So then they would look at me, they'd always make this face, and after him goes, hey, no, seriously, how did you get those contracts? I said, well, dude, I'm not just going to give you this information for free if you're not willing to do work. I'm gauging you to see if you're worth mentoring. And it was that's part of the reason why I started my channel, because now I can just start the channel as people can listen and they can subscribe, and hopefully I can have an impact that way. Because going out, it was so many people that just were not willing to put in the work. And when I talked to my mentor, he's like, yeah. He goes, I was giving up on trying to find someone to mentor till you walked into my door because nobody ever wanted to do anything. And the next day, after I told you I meant you're texting me telling me you're going driving for dollars. He goes, that's what I wanted to see. So I get it, because you get these people coming out and and either they're scared. I can work with that. Sometimes you need someone just to push you forward. But when you want to ask questions and then you don't, take the answer seriously, or it's not the answer you want to hear, so you try to ask another way, that's just like the biggest turnoff. And those to me are the people that never find mentors. So I just thought that was interesting. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's also what's great about the school community is
right.
you can see that there's a lot of different personalities there. So, my personality may not fit well with someone that has certain questions, and same thing, yours may not fit well with certain people also. But there's just so much people there that you can always bounce ideas off of, and then you can kind of find your little tribe or community. And I think that's what's super great about the community. But I did like your kind of post that you put about asking about someone that wanted to join or jump on your podcast and help you grow together. And what really caught my attention was you kind of talked about if you walk into your job tomorrow and are shocked to get let go, we can all not be one of these employees crying in the parking lot wondering how we're going to tell our spouse. So that was kind of same thought process for me too. But that was very kind of I don't think a lot of people realize that, right? They just and you see it right now, right? I know not everyone's going to agree with what Doge is doing and jobs being cut and whatnot, but at the end of the day, if you do lose your job, right, what are you going to do, right?
Right. So yeah, and that reason I push that so much is, one, that's my why. Michael Zuber talks about that a lot. What's your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you investing? I mean, money, there's 2 ways I need to protect my family. One is through physical, and I'm sure you feel the same way too as a firefighter. You got to do the physical protection of your family. The other way is through money and cash flowing investments. But yeah, a couple of years ago, and I'm just going to tell you this story too, because it has to do with protecting my family. My wife was a corrections officer. She's since retired out here. And what she was doing, she had a specialty job after it's like any other job. After you do the job for so long, you get a chance to bid on jobs that are, easier. So she got a job working in laundry. So when she worked in laundry, she would work with another officer and 4 or 5 inmates, and they would wash all the jail uniforms and go pass them out. So what happened is the jail was getting understaffed. So they had to change the schedule. So they told her, you're going to be working by yourself with these 4 inmates, and we're going to put you on midnights from 7 p to 7 a. Now, the problem with that is, one, she's by herself, but that in itself didn't bother her too much because she knows what she signed up for when she became a correction officer. What bothered her is the laundry area is separated from the jail. So if she gets attacked and starts screaming for help, the other officers have to get in their cars and drive there to help her. The other thing was, if they were to get a hold of her radio, the panic buttons that they carry on their belt, so you can just hit that and it'll go to the jail, those were broken and they were refusing to fix it. So she's like, this is the first time in 20 some years I've worked in this jail and I feel unsafe. And I said, the hell with it, retire. I'm like, you got the time in, we've got all these assets that cash flow. What is the point of doing what we're doing to protect ourselves if now you need to walk and you can't, and you refuse to do it? So she thought about it, and she thought about it, and she's like, it's just unsafe. I'm like, what are we doing? I said, we bought these rental properties specifically for this after you had a problem 10 years ago, and we decided we were going to protect ourselves. Man, it was the proudest day of my life. She walked into that warden's office, and the warden said, how you doing, Officer Escobedo? She's like, I'm doing good, Warden. By the way, I'm retiring. And she goes, you are? When? She points to the clock and says, in 20 minutes. Here's my gun, my badge, and my commission, and walked out. Didn't have to, avoided that nightmare situation. And it was all from financial planning. It was building that wall. That scary thing showed up at the wall, and the wall of finances kept them out. It's kind of where I got that analogy, and that's always been my why. Now my why is to get myself retired and neither one of us to ever have to work again. So
Yeah, it's just making work optional. I mean, that's the
right.
thing, right? I mean, you can love your job, and I know a lot of guys in the firehouse, they love their job, and it's still a great job, but it's not a young man's game. And like right now, I'm waiting for an MRI on my shoulder, so I'm not sure how long I'm going to be out.
Mm,
But I don't intend to do my 25 anymore. I mean, that's kind of the plan for me. I'm at 16 years, 18 years total in the fire service, but 16 years in my current department. But yeah, I don't foresee myself doing the full 25 anymore. I mean, that was the plan always going in, right? I never thought I'd want to leave my job early. I thought it was the greatest job in the world, and
hmm
I hate to say it, but I thought I was Superman, right? I thought I could do this job forever. And some point too, you realize you can't beat Father Time, right? I mean, I work out, and it's just sometimes certain things you can't avoid, and it's making me realize how just give yourself an option, right? I see a lot of guys limping to the finish line in this job, and it's kind of I want to go out on my own terms if possible, and hopefully I don't need to limp to the finish line. So that's kind of my plan.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So just a couple more questions. Do you have an opinion on the current volatile economic system, and is there any steps you're taking within your investment strategy? Have you changed anything, or you just kind of stay in the course?
Yeah, I would say I'm not really changing course or anything. I'm definitely kind of in that Dion mindset of lazy investor, even like Coach Carson, small and mighty.
Yeah, right.
But what I do find important is that I n- I was never into politics at all, and I'm not saying you have to be into politics, but if you are investing or you want to preserve your wealth or grow your wealth, you definitely need to take some accountability and pay attention to what is going on in politics and the economy. And it doesn't have to be something where you love it and you're reading about it every day, but you kind of have to do some work into it and stay up to date on what is going on. And it's more so like I think both sides are corrupt. Both sides are crooks.
Yeah,
But it's
I
but it
agree.
but it's also how are you gonna win in whatever environment is out there, right? And I think that's the bottom line. So that's why it's important to kind of, to understand what inflation is. Instead, understand what they're talking about when they're talking about tariffs, or is tariffs going to be as bad as what they're trying to, as the media is trying to spin it, right? Or is it being implemented a certain way to secure the border or whatnot, right? So I think it's more of having a decent amount of knowledge about it and then make decisions kind of to how you're going to navigate. And of course, where you are in your journey is going to be more, um, maybe how more aggressive you're going to be and whatnot, or what your overall goals are. But where I'm at right now, because I still have a pension, medical, and everything, and I have some other kind of ace in the holes, I guess, in my back pocket, that I don't need to be as risky at this point. So a lot of it is making smart decisions, um, and just kind of navigating the playing field that's out there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, you said something interesting too, where you said economics too, economics and political. Shout out to the uneducated economist. I don't know if you follow him, but I that guy basically changed the way I think about investing through his economic laws, which I talk about a lot on my channel. And just having a basic understanding of economics really makes understanding tariffs and everything that's going on with our government easier right now.
Yeah.
And I say a lot on my videos when I'm talking about things, you got to learn to cut through the noise. And what I mean by that is you got to not listen to what politicians are saying on both sides of the fence, and really what the media is saying too. Now, I'm not someone that believes the media is corrupt. I maybe you are, but I don't. I read a lot of these articles that, and I just when I read it, I think of the reporter lacks a financial education. They really don't know what they're talking about. They think they do, and they think like the majority of people, because our school system doesn't teach it. Nobody is going to graduate high school or college and be able to tell me or you what the Cantillon effect is, what Triffin's dilemma is, what Gresham's law is. I can break those down. I can spend an hour talking about it, and that's thanks to the uneducated economist and my own research after he's talked. But a lot of that stuff, I'll read. I read a wonderful book about weaponizing money and how the United States has weaponized money by a wonderful author. I used to have it sitting here. I don't. But as I read it, and she talked about how the rust bucket of the Midwest and how all manufacturing left, and it was because of corporate greed, and that's certainly part of it. But the whole time reading, I'm just thinking, Cantillon effect, Cantillon effect. That's the real reason why this is left, why these jobs have left, and it allows me to think different. It allows me to plan different financially than a lot of people plan. And I work in the steel mills out here, and I'm a union steel worker, and we still get a pension too for now. And I always hear people sitting in the break room. I'm crunching the numbers, man. I think I can retire in a year, and I'll just bluntly tell them, I go, you got any rental properties, dividend paying stocks? Because don't you want to live another 30 years? Don't plan on that pension being here. And the look on their face, because I'm talking about something they don't even want to think about, but you have to think about it. If you're going to protect yourself and your family, you have to think about the things that you don't want to think about, and get them outside of that financial wall that I talk about, and keep them stuck there with your financial wall. So, in economics is huge for that, I think. So,
Absolutely. And I don't know how your pension works, but I mean, like I said, it's definitely that golden handcuffs, right? I mean, you look at it and I'm gonna get this guaranteed payment, but I look at, for ours, once you retire, your pension increases 2.5% basically per year, right? So you're barely keeping up with inflation. And like if you're gonna stay in Hawaii, cost of living is always increasing and things are always getting expensive. And so I see it quite a bit. Even in my area, we see a lot of retired captains and retired guys in the area, and a lot of them are like trying to figure out how to make it in a sense, right? They're either cutting back on their expenses, and so it's like you're saying, right? I mean, yeah, the pension is great, but doesn't quite work the way that it may have worked, 30 years ago, right?
Right.
So you're
Right.
saying better prepare yourself with having other assets that generate cash flow and that you have more control over, or that you have basically you just have more tools on the chessboard, right? And
Right.
I think
Right.
but that's it's hard to get that message through to the younger generation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially when, I mean, statistics say 67% of people live paycheck to paycheck. So people grow up in a house where everybody's struggling. They're not really taught money. I was lucky. My dad wasn't a huge investor, but he is to this day the cheapest man you could ever meet. And through that, I learned at a very young age that at least that money was valuable and not to be wasted on stupid things. So from the time I was 14, I'd be walking around the mall and look at a shirt that I want and then think, yeah, but do I really need it for X amount of money? And be like, no, and I'd walk away. Meantime, my friend would buy it just because they like it. I had learned from that early age that it was valuable. Once I knew money was valuable, I began to. I heard Robert Kiyosaki saying, "Don't say what did he say? Don't say I can't afford it. Say how do I afford it?" And that really rang with me because my dad says that to this day. Oh, we can't afford that. We can't afford that. So I just started thinking, well, how do I afford that? How do I retire earlier than the rule of 85 for me to get a pension? Well, I can stock up on uh, rental properties. I can figure out dividend paying stocks. I could do private money lending. I could start a YouTube channel. My goal with the YouTube channel isn't really to be monetized. It's to build a legacy and hopefully help people. But if I can get monetized like anything else, that'd be great. So that was just kind of it's really all mindset. I think so much of it is mindset. What's your mindset? I mean, that's just what I've seen.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but it's. I mean, people say it different ways, but it's basically just getting out of the matrix, right? I mean, it's basically, breaking free of kind of the traditional path that either we're taught when we grew up. Like you're saying, we're not really taught about money and things like that. We don't learn about these type of things, and a lot of families are living paycheck to paycheck, so that's all they see. For even like my parents both work for the city, so they both have pensions. you know um so they've done well for themselves, but you know i I don't think their plan would probably work as well in today's financial situations, right? But at the same time, it worked for them, but they probably could have done a lot better too if they had a different view on money, right? So well, I would say my dad's a little bit different, but my mom's definitely more of that Dave Ramsey mindset, right? Like, um, you know, paid off home and all that type of things.
Right.
And my dad definitely is a little more on the risk taker side and try to accumulate wealth. So they're always butting heads on that side. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, there's no right or wrong way. It's just as long as make sure you just do something. I think that's the thing, right? Have control over your situation.
Correct. Yeah. I just, like I said, I just think that's so critical. I think it's just like, and I don't want to sound political here, but I know guys that talk about all their guns they have everywhere in the house. And I like guns too. I mean, I'm ex law enforcement like my wife, but then they're living paycheck to paycheck. And this is at the steel mill too, where people make great money because they spend it all. When I told one guy, you got all these guns to protect yourself and your family in case somebody breaks in. But if we get laid off tomorrow, you can't last a month. So you need to learn finances. So you got your guns to protect you because you want your guns, and then you got money coming in even outside of your job to protect you. It's twofold. It's physical and financial protection. And a lot of people just they don't think of it that way though either. So, and I'm sure there'll be viewers out there that just think I'm an idiot for thinking of it that way, but that is the way I think of it because I've been there. I've seen my wife's career get threatened. I've seen her almost get stuck in a really bad situation, really unsafe situation in her job if she wasn't able to walk. So, and all the guns in the world in my house wouldn't have done any good there. So, it just kind of my mindset. It should be both, physical and financial to properly protect your family. And the only way to do that is with financial education. Just like shooting a gun, the only way you get good at it is you shoot it. You know, it,
Yep,
so
absolutely. Yep.
well, I think that's all I got, man. I really appreciate you coming on. You got anything to add here?
No, I mean, this was fun. Yeah, we can do it again.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
yeah.
you know.
Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you again too, just before you go?
Yeah, I'm on all social media platforms: YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, but all pretty much financial firefighter. You'll find me and just causing trouble wherever I'm at.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That's what we do. So,
Yeah,
all right. Well, yeah, it was a blast. I'm really glad we did
yeah,
this. So shout out again to Michael Zuber for his school community for allowing, because this wouldn't have happened without him. So I appreciate him always.
absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. Take care of yourself. I'll be in touch.